What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm of course going to be doing my official 2023 NBA mock draft, and in this video I will of course be talking about the top 10 picks. Of course, picks 11 to 14 will be coming very soon, but in this video I really wanted to focus on the top 10 and who I have going with them. And let's just say there are a lot of really special players and a lot of crucial picks that these teams need to make to, of course, ensure that they are going to have a strong future. And hopefully, if I have predicted them right, I think I've hopefully done pretty well with my drafting. But of course, I would very much like you guys to let me know what your thoughts and opinions are with who I have going, of course, 1 through 10. Did you disagree? Did you agree? Why? Definitely let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. The other thing I would like to say is, of course, at the time of making this video, the NBA draft lottery actually hasn't happened yet. So it's really not certain if these teams will be selecting these picks or anything like this. But I would just like to say, of course, that because we don't know what the lottery will officially be, I will just be basing it off the standings at the time of making this video. So I guess without further ado, here's who I have going in my top 10 of the 2023 NBA mock draft. Let's start off with the first overall pick, which is currently being held by the Detroit Pistons. I definitely don't think there is really much debate on who should go at pick number 1 in this draft. And of course, I will be selecting Victor Wembanyama, who is just one of the most special talents we have ever seen coming into the NBA for, some time now. The fact is, this guy is about 7'4". Some even have him listed as 7'5". Can literally ball handle and create his own shot like Kevin Durant. Of course, very much plays similar to a couple of the players drafted recently in Evan Mobley and of course Chet Holmgren. Even being compared to NBA All-Stars in the last couple years as well, like Kristaps Porzingis, but with the potential of being a 10 times better player. It's almost like this guy is being said to be, if you would kind of put Chet Holmgren and Kevin Durant and even Kristaps together, which is just an insane comparison. Some people literally have Kevin Durant as a top 10 player and literally of all time. And Victor, yeah, this guy is, the fact is, he's a lot taller than Kevin Durant, can do everything KD can do, but can guard the center position as well, and just has already been compared to like that Kristaps Porzingis defense when Kristaps was in his prime. And I think people forget how good of a defender Kristaps was back when he was playing for the New York Knicks before the injuries. That guy was averaging like 2 blocks a game as a 7-footer. And imagine what Victor's going to do as a 7'4" guy who can also create his own shot. Now, I know the Detroit Pistons have a couple centers that are trying to develop here and there, like Jalen Duren, and of course, the recently acquired James Wiseman, but this is a no-brainer for them. It just makes a whole lot of sense to go for this. You're going to pick best available, and the best available is by far Victor Wembanyama, who, partnering up with 2 prolific playmakers in Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, just, oh my god, it seems like an absolutely insane thing to put on paper. And if you're a Detroit Pistons fan, the potential of having Victor on your team right now would be pretty insane. Like, in a couple of years, you're definitely looking at, if Victor can stay healthy, you're looking at a potential NBA championship one day with that type of, I think, young core going on. And pick number 1 in Cade, a very good young defensive guard who can also ball handle and create his own shot in Jaden Ivey, and Victor Wembanyama. Yeah, it's just definitely one of the best, if not the best, young cores in the NBA. Of course, in saying all of these massive positives with Victor, there does unfortunately come some negatives, of course, those being the fact that there are a lot of concerns about his, I think, body and how he will hold up in the NBA. He's already had a bit of an injury past right now, an injury history, I should say. And he's only like 19 years old and is already kind of battling with that over his head. And again, I mentioned before Kristaps Porzingis being a 7'2" or so guy who would just be an absolute elite defender, but then the injuries started to come and he definitely struggled for a bit, has really bounced back now, but is not really the player I think a lot of people thought he could potentially be. And again, touch wood, but the main kind of knock and hit on Victor right now could definitely be his injury, history, and I think the issue that he could potentially further on do it. Again, he is a very slim and skinny player as well, who I think will definitely have to put on some weight when entering the NBA. But there is no doubt in my mind, Victor is, again, one of the most talented players coming into an NBA draft. Since Zion, since LeBron, etc. He definitely fits that criteria as one of the most talented players ever. And yeah, whatever team drafts him, we'll just obviously pray for the best so no injuries happen, but this guy could of course be a freak of nature, a 7'4" type of Kevin Durant player that is just, moves like a big man and all that type of stuff. And yeah, it's definitely going to be a really, I think, awesome thing to see maybe him in the NBA. With the number 2 overall pick, though, we do have the Houston Rockets, and with that pick, I have the Houston Rockets selecting Scoot Henderson. I think this is also a really good pick for him, and of course the Rockets as well. I think this is a nice fit, and it makes a whole lot of sense. Scoot is of course 6'2" and is being compared to a bit of a hybrid of Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose, and those are two awesome, I think, comparisons. Whether or not you want to hate on Russell Westbrook, there's no doubt to admit that this guy was an MVP of the league at one stage and has been known as a prolific ball handler and playmaker who can definitely help his team out quite a bit. The athleticism is very similar between these players, and I definitely see some Derrick Rose athleticism in him. And of course, the potential on the defensive end as just a really good, athletic, young point guard is definitely going to be there as well. I love this fit for the Houston Rockets. I've been saying for quite a bit now, they just need a point guard who's going to come in and steady the offense, be nice and calm, play make, and score when he needs to, and of course help defensively. That might not come in his first season, but it will definitely, hopefully, be there for them one day. And I just think it's a better fit to put him alongside Jalen Green than Kevin Porter. It's too hard to have these two guards who just continue to chuck up shots, not really calm and relax the offense. There's no real ball movement or, fluidity with having those two in the backcourt. And I think if you change Kevin Porter Jr. and replace him with Scoot Henderson, not only does that improve probably the defense and playmaking and ball movement of the team, I think it also calms Jalen Green down a little bit and kind of reassures him on the shot that he needs to take. I think he will get open a bit more with teams having the stress to guard Scoot Henderson. I think Scoot Henderson's the type of guy with a couple years in the NBA on his belt. Can definitely, I think play make to Jalen Green a bit better than what Kevin Porter Jr. has so far in his career. And I think the ball movement will just be a whole lot better. Again, defense is a bit of an issue with this Rockets team. I believe they're one of the worst defensive teams in the league. So again, improving that on that end at the point guard position is also a really awesome thing. The fact that Scoot Henderson has been compared to two former MVPs of the league is an absolute astronomical thing. He has the shot creation athleticism that Derrick Rose had, athleticism that Russell Westbrook had, the playmaking that Russell Westbrook has, and all this type of stuff. The rebounding, I think, is there as well. Yeah, he's definitely a player who I think could be somewhat complete in the NBA. And the rumor has it is he might not even be 6'2" anymore. There's rumors going around that he's actually going to be listed at 6'3" very, very soon. And that 6'2" listing might be wrong right now. So having a 6'3" guard definitely helps defensively as well. And this is just an obvious pick for the Houston Rockets. If they do want to take it that step further, I still think bringing in a veteran player to help Scoot Henderson develop and whatnot would be an awesome thing to potentially do. There's going to be a ton of guys out there that they could go and do, but in trade for. We know the Cleveland Cavaliers previously helped Darius Garland out by bringing in Ricky Rubio, again, veteran type of playmaking point guard who just was able to teach Garland new things and really helped him develop as a player. There are going to be options for Scoot Henderson. I think the Rockets should do that. Kyle Lowry might be up for trade very, very soon, and you could definitely take on his contract and get a first-round pick maybe out of it by doing it. And plus, you could bring in a veteran player who can help Scoot Henderson develop. And yeah, Lowry can help him with, on the defensive end, playmaking, all that stuff. And I just think that'd be a really awesome thing. And yeah, this is kind of a match made in heaven, I think, for the Houston Rockets. A really good idea. With the third overall pick, though, I do have the San Antonio Spurs selecting Brandon Miller. Now, I'm not sure if Brandon Miller is the most Spurs player out there. Spurs are really specific on the players that they, of course, try and take. We know that Jeremy Sohan was a very Spurs type of player, very defensive orientated. And Brandon Miller might not be as good of a defender as like a Jeremy Sohan type of guy, but I think there is a lot of potential on that end when we do look at Brandon Miller. He is, at the time making this video, compared to Paul George coming into this draft, a guy who's 6'9", who has the ability to go from the 2 to the 4 position on defense. He is a bit lanky, but we know that's never had been an issue for Spurs players in the past. He's incredibly athletic and a great scorer as well, and is believed that he could potentially develop on that two-way end type of role that Paul George has done for so many years, being an elite scorer and an elite defender as well. If Brandon Miller can, of course, be an elite defender in the NBA, that will 100% be what the Spurs want and what the Spurs need. Again, the only knock on Brandon Miller is there is a bit of an issue with explosiveness, and he doesn't exactly seem to have a great burst and being able to separate off the dribble. That can definitely be an issue in the NBA. It's a thing that makes a lot of players great, and we've seen draft players in history be not very good at that and not really translate to the NBA. Of course, one being Josh Jackson. There was always an issue sometimes with his, of course, I think, dribble off the first step, and I think he's burst at times, and Josh Jackson would either be really good, with that, and I think his athleticism would show that, but at times when he was kind of matched against, much more elite players than what he played with in college, we know Josh Jackson just couldn't do it, and that is a concern I think Brandon Miller could definitely have, but if he does adjust to that, I think he could be an absolutely terrific scorer in the NBA. But the most important thing is, I think with this Spurs team and how they want to play, if he can be a two-way player like Paul George and put an awesome and consistent effort in on the defensive end, he's going to be exactly what the San Antonio Spurs want, and he is going to fit into their system perfectly. And that's exactly what they need. It's been said that he's a pretty decent shooter as well. And yeah, I think that it will be a very good fit. Again, if he can be a defender, then yeah, awesome. It's a terrific move right there. Being lanky and all that stuff, one of the few teams that I don't think really care about that is the Spurs. The Spurs aren't going to force you to put on weight. They're not going to do any of that, I don't think. And if anything, Popovich is a terrific coach who's going to use that to his advantage and make sure that Brandon Miller gets the best out of it that he possibly can. So realistically, he might not be the most Spurs player in the world so far, but if he can develop into what they are saying Brandon Miller could potentially develop into, he will very rightfully become a Spurs player and could be a similar player to Paul George and even a Kawhi Leonard in the NBA, in my opinion. I think, yeah, that just kind of fits in with what I think the Spurs want. Now, with the fourth pick, I do have the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, it's a bit of a hard one. The two players that I actually was battling on whether or not who I wanted Charlotte to pick were actually going to be out of Asua Thompson and Amon Thompson. And that's pretty funny because, believe it or not, they're actually both Twins. But with the 4th overall pick, I've actually decided to pick Asar Thompson, who is, I think, the better defender slash shooting guard of the duo. I believe Amen Thompson is actually ranked higher and is ranked at 4th, and Asar is ranked at 5th. But I actually think Asar, he definitely just, I think, makes a lot more sense for this Charlotte Hornets team, and they're both very similar as a player, but I think Asar is just better equipped to guarding that shooting guard position, which I think kind of meshes well with LaMelo Ball. I think if you were to go with Amen, it just might take the ball a little bit off LaMelo, which is not exactly what you want. I think Asar coming into this team and playing the shooting guard position at 6'7" is absolutely lethal. The fact you would have two like 6'7" players in your backcourt defensively would just be absolutely insane. I believe he has a 6'11" wingspan, and just again on that defensive end, I think could be a really interesting player. He's actually said to be a bit of a skywalker. He has a freakish ability as a player who can definitely dunk really consistently. He's being compared to a couple different players here and there. I believe he's kind of being compared to a bit of SGA and Terrence Ross, which, I don't know, you don't see many players compared to Terrence Ross because of who Terrence Ross is now. Not very good anymore, but I think people forget how good Terrence Ross was back when he played for the Toronto Raptors and whatnot. An extremely athletic shot creator who could kind of do really anything on the floor. Again, Asar is being said that he has a decent mid-range. He could definitely develop on it down the line, but he has an extreme upside as a defender who reads the passing lanes very, very well and has extremely good weak side help as well. There's not exactly too much knocks on Asar. I don't believe he is as good of a ball handler as what his brother is, and I think there is some work for him to do as an outside shooter. But from what I'm hearing is he's still a pretty decent shot creator who is extremely athletic and will definitely appear on a highlight tape every now and then, while also just having the potential to be an extremely good defender in the NBA. And I actually think that's kind of what you need to put with LaMelo Ball. He doesn't need to handle the ball or anything like that on this team, which is, of course, his weaknesses. I think his upside is exactly what the Charlotte Hornets need, which I think is, of course, athleticism, very, very good defense, and still maybe another shot creator to come in. And again, if they move on from Terry Rozier, which is rumored to be happening pretty soon, Asar would be a really good shooting guard to play with LaMelo Ball. I think it'd actually be a really, really good duo, and everything LaMelo Ball can't do, which is, I think, consistent defense and all that type of stuff, I think Asar kind of comes in and picks up that pieces. And if you got a dude like Asar who can be pretty decent with the mid-range and, just league average from the three-point shooting and all that type of stuff, that's still decent. You're bringing him in, I think, for his defense and shot creating, and I think that will definitely help out LaMelo Ball down the line. And yeah, if they manage to bring back Miles Bridges, imagine having a team of like LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, and Asar. You're literally just going to have non-stop highlight tapes all the time. It's going to be absolutely awesome, I think, for that NBA team. And again, as I just said, he's not exactly that great of a passer or ball handler, but he kind of does everything else really, really well and has an extreme upside on defense that should definitely translate to the NBA level. With the 5th overall pick, I do have the Orlando Magic, who I believe have another first round pick that should be in the top 10 in this draft as well. And with this pick, it was pretty hard because they already have a lot of guards, but I do actually have them taking Amen Thompson. This was an extremely hard one because it's really unsure. I'm really unsure what the Orlando Magic are going to be doing with their future guard situation. They already seem like they've got their power forward and I think small forward locked in with Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Of course, their center position might need to have some work down the line, but still Wendell Carter is a pretty reliable center. At that point guard position, they've got Markelle Fultz, who has definitely improved quite a bit this season coming back from injury. Cole Anthony, who I've always said looks like he could be a really good six-man down the line, and I think that's what they're finally using him as, and I think that makes sense. And of course, Jalen Suggs. Now, I don't know what's going to be going on with Jalen Suggs. I'm not too sure exactly what his future is going to be like on this team. I don't think they have really got what they wanted out of him. But if you bring in a dude like Amen Thompson, I think that's actually a really nice play to maybe start with Markelle Fultz, who kind of, again, fits in with this team a little bit, especially with the height. Having him as a 6'7" shooting guard down the line, I think would be a really cool idea. Amen Thompson, I believe, from all the reports that I've kind of heard, is actually being compared to SGA, which is a really awesome comparison. He has been really, really good in the NBA as well. And also, he's been compared to Ja Morant for his athleticism and explosiveness, which is just really good as well. Unlike his brother Asar, he's actually said to be a really good playmaker and ball handler, which I think would be really nice for this team too. He's being said as a bit of a 6'7" combo guard who can definitely be really awesome on the defensive end, but can definitely be a playmaker who can also score. This is, of course, a really good comparison in the SGA type of thing, being called a combo guard who has extremely good first step and explosive athleticism is definitely something you want on your team. The issues are, I think, with Amen Thompson is he is being said that he's not a very good three-point shooter and can definitely struggle from the three-point line, which is a bit of an issue that could somewhat be a deal breaker for the Orlando Magic, as they already have Markelle Fultz, who's not a very good three-point shooter at the time of making this video, and Paolo Banchero, who I don't think has really been given the opportunity to show whether or not he's a good three-point shooter or not. Of course, he's had to take a lot of the shots and be a big shot creator guy, but I think down the line he could definitely improve on that as well. There are a bit of issues with this. If you have a starting five of Fultz at the 1, Thompson at the 2, Wagner at the 3, Banchero at the 4, and Carter at the 5, there's not a whole lot of three-point shooting on there, and that could definitely scare me. But if you're going to look at a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, again, have a starting five of Garland, Mitchell, Okoro, Allen, and Mobley, other than, like, Garland and Mitchell, there's not really any three-point shooting in that starting five at all. Of course, Okoro has improved, but your guards don't. They're the only ones that have the, consistent three-point shooting going on. And I think Franz Wagner can be a consistent three-point shooter. I think, Banchero with time can definitely be a consistent three-point shooter. And who knows? Amen Thompson might be a decent three-point shooter one day. But the realism is, if you are making this team and you're picking Amen Thompson, you're not doing it because of the three-point shooting. You're doing it, I think, because of the defensive end and, ball movement that could eventually come out of this one day. I think the ball movement could be absolutely awesome, and the defense will be absolutely scary. You think about it like this: you'd have Markelle Fultz at the point guard who's like 6'3", Thompson who's 6'7" at the shooting guard, Wagner's like 6'10", Banchero's like 6'10", and then I think Carter, 6'11" or so as well. I think 6'10" there too. The defense would be able to switch from nearly every position on there other than Fultz. It would be an absolute scary thing, and I think that's where you bring in Amen Thompson for, and I think he can definitely help out with that and just be a really nice player. So I think that makes a whole lot of sense for the Orlando Magic to go with him. Might not be the greatest fit, but he's the best player available, and you can turn it into a good fit. Very similar to what the Cleveland Cavaliers have done with their drafting. They can become a very good defensive-orientated team who is absolutely insane when it does come to ball movement and athleticism by just picking Amen Thompson. With the 6th overall pick, it has definitely changed a couple times in the last couple days, but at the time of making this video, the Portland Trailblazers actually own the 6th pick, and this was a really hard player, I think, to kind of select for them, because it's really hard to kind of tell what direction Portland are going to be going in. Will they be, potentially trading this pick to continue to maybe furthermore, try and add another star to help Dame contend for a championship? Or will they, be doing what they did last season, where they draft another top 10 pick player to kind of develop alongside Dame and all of the above? And that's what I kind of think they're probably going to be doing in this draft. So in kind of taking that all in, I do actually have them taking best available, and it so happens that the best available kind of fits what Portland actually need right now. So with the 6th overall pick, I do have the Portland Trailblazers selecting Jarris Walker, who is, of course, I believe, a 6'7", 6'8", very heavy, strong type of power forward who is extremely athletic and can definitely, catch a lob here and there. Just a very versatile option. He's being compared to a bit of a John Collins type of, Paul Millsap type of player as well. He's being said that not only can he guard the 4 very well, but he's also flexible enough to actually move over to that 5 position if needed. He's, of course, also being listed as a really solid 3-point shooter and a nice mid-range shooter as well, even having decent field goal efficiency at the moment. And I just think he honestly kind of fits what the Portland Trailblazers are kind of wanting to do right now. And they've already got a couple of certified guards, of course, in Shaedon Sharpe, Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons. And then they've, of course, got a really certified forward in Jeremy Grant. I think it'd actually be really cool to kind of add another one of those guys in Jarris Walker, who not only can help with the defense that they do, of course, sometimes lack, but can switch onto that 4 and that 5, definitely help out from the perimeter, but also being an athletic beast who can honestly potentially crash the boards and also score off a Damian Lillard lob, off a pick and roll, all of that type of stuff. I definitely think Jarris Walker has the capability of doing. Now, there's nothing really kind of flashy about this guy's stats. He is averaging 11 and a 7 per game. That is 11 points and 7 rebounds. But he honestly, just the way he kind of plays and the way he goes about it, really does seem like it would kind of convert over to the NBA. And I think that was kind of what was being said about John Collins before he was, of course, drafted into the NBA as well. I really do think when we look at a guy like Jarris Walker, he kind of ticks that same thing. And I just think this guy can definitely help out the Portland Trailblazers, and he gives them a reason to not want to trade this pick if this is where the Trailblazers do, of course, select from. If you add a guy like Jarris Walker, this can definitely help and really change the dynamic of this Portland Trailblazers team. I really don't think Portland are as off as what a lot of people think they are. There is definitely a lot of changes and things they still do desperately need to make, but I'm really happy with Damian Lillard wanting to be loyal, and he's actually been content with staying as a Portland Trailblazer, and I really think there's still a lot to build on with this team. Their starting 5 is pretty decent. We'll get that straight out of the way. That's definitely a really nice thing about their team, but their bench is really not that good, in my opinion. And I think if you go out and sign, draft Jarris Walker, of course, maybe go out and sign a potential another starter, right? We could be looking at a situation where you're moving players like Matisse Thybulle and Cam Reddish, of course, to that bench type of role. Therefore, they can also go and sign maybe some more veteran type of dudes to come off that bench. I think their starting 5 before the trade deadline was really nice. Now, it could definitely do some work, but I still think it's pretty solid. But you get a couple dudes on there who could definitely come off the bench and maybe impact there as well. So for their starting 5, look, there might be a little bit of work because, of course, they did trade Josh Hart. But before that, it was looking really, really nice and something that they could definitely build on and add to by the bench. And if you're bringing in a dude like Jarris Walker, a player like that, and you go out and do a couple other things here and there, I think the Portland Trailblazers could definitely be a really solid team going forward. So that's why I have them selecting Jarris Walker with the 6th overall pick. Now, moving on to pick number 7, we of course do have the Indiana Pacers, who have definitely been a bit of a shock team, I think, in 2023. They've, of course, dropped off a bit, but showed really promising signs with Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, and, of course, Miles Turner just being a really good, I want to call big 3, and I definitely think they will progress into being one of the biggest big 3s, if that makes sense, in the NBA. And I still think there is a lot of room to add there, and there's a real big kind of Indiana Pacer type of player who's available on the board right now, who I kind of think would somewhat fit this, of course, Pacers team. And that actually does, of course, happen to be Cam Whitemore, who I believe is a 6'7", small forward who is being compared to a bit of OG Anunoby and Desmond Bane as well. But I actually like that OG Anunoby comparison a bit more. Kind of a guy who doesn't need to be a big shot creator, but a guy who can, be a very consistent 3-point shooter who can maybe defend 1 through 4 and just be an extremely versatile defender on the court. And I think that's what we're kind of looking like we're going to be seeing with Cam Whitemore. I think the ability to maybe turn into a bit of a shot creator will be there. We know OG and Desmond Bane kind of ended up becoming shot creators as their their career has gone on further and further at the time of making this video. Of course, the thing is with Cam Whitemore is he will definitely be a project player, as he is just a decent defender now. It's not like he's extremely elite at that, but the potential is definitely there, and I think he can really mount into being a very solid defender in the NBA. He's just really known to be a really nice shooter who I think can kind of move around the field and just be a really good around the court, and just be a really, really consistent guy like that. Again, he's not exactly that great when it comes to ball handling or anything like that, but the kind of beauty thing about this Indiana Pacers team is he doesn't exactly need to be. They've already got a bunch of really great guys who can handle the ball and pass the rock. If you're bringing in a dude like, Cam Whitemore, he kind of fills in what this Pacers team doesn't have consistently, and that is maybe a guy who's going to be an elite role player in the NBA. I think what they are going to want right now is for Benedict Mathurin and, of course, potentially Tyrese Halliburton to be the 2 big shot creators on this team, the 2 all-star type of guys. And then I think they're going to want Miles Turner to be the, perennial defender of this team as well. They've already got all of these boxes kind of ticked. The only couple things I think they might need are some extremely good role players, which they somewhat already have one in Buddy Hield, but could definitely furthermore build on that. And of course, maybe some more rebounding here and there, and maybe a player to play that power forward position down the line. So you could go and draft Cam Whitemore, maybe trade a Buddy Hield or so to bring in a power forward here and there as well. One that could be on the move very soon is like a John Collins. I just think, geez, imagine seeing a team that'd be like Halliburton at the 1, Mathurin at the 2, Whitemore at the 3, Collins at the 4, and Turner at the 5. Oh my god. Everyone in there can guard everyone. They all are pretty decent shooters. Collins maybe not at the moment, but has definitely shown he can be in his career. Bunch of athletic beasts in there as well. Like, goddamn, that team would be really good looking on paper. And yeah, I think Cam Whitemore might be somewhat of a more of a mystery to some of the players that I have kind of talked about previously, but this is a dude that could come in and be an extremely versatile shooter, maybe can develop on that shot creating and I think defensive end as well. But I think that's what is so good about this guy, is it already looks like he is getting there, and by the time he's in the NBA could turn that extremely good shooting touch all around the court into being an elite shot creator maybe one day as well. Like, if it doesn't work out, then whatever, right? But if it does work out, then yeah, you've got like 3 really good young shot creators on this Indiana Pacers team. And worst thing for Cam Whitemore is he might be an elite shooter, which is that's a pretty promising sign in the NBA. If you can be an elite shooter and defend your player and just do your role, there's not much more you can ask for. And I definitely think this is the type of guy who can maybe accomplish something like that in the NBA. So with the 7th overall pick, I do have the Indiana Pacers selecting Cameron Whitemore. Now with the 8th overall pick, this is a team that, I'm not exactly too sure how I feel about this team. It's a very interesting one, but it is the Washington Wizards. I am also very happy that Bradley Beal has decided to, stay. I think it's a very awesome thing to have loyalty among players, and it's, I think, a good thing to know that there is a player who is here right now who is willing to help build this team and help rebuild it, and is going to be here for the long term. So I just think it makes a whole lot of sense to continue to hit the draft, which they've been doing, and hopefully for them, they'll finally nail an extremely good pick which they haven't been able to do in the last couple years, unfortunately, with players like Johnny Davis just not really panning out so far. Of course, they're still young, and we still got to give them time. They could become very good players, but at the end of the day, the player who I have them drafting, I think, will hopefully change this team. And again, he's a bit of a tiny bit of a project, but also this guy has a lot of potential to be like a Josh Giddey type of players who he's being compared to, and that is, of course, Anthony Black. I think the big thing this Washington Wizards team has been needing for a very long time is a playmaking point guard, and even though Anthony Black's stats haven't exactly been that great when it does come to the playmaking end, he definitely has a lot of potential to make those extremely good, you know, flashy passes, like a couple of the NBL players who have gone into the NBA, those being LaMelo Ball and, of course, Josh Giddey. Now, Anthony Black didn't actually go to the NBL, but he kind of plays a lot like those two guys. He actually comes from Arkansas College, and again, he's actually been compared to Josh Giddey and a bit of Sean Livingston as well, which are pretty good comparisons. This guy is a very nice 6'7" guard who can definitely play, I think, the 1 through the 3. He is a really unselfish player who can definitely make some really nice, smart passes. He's also got a really decent jump shot that may need to, of course, develop his three-point shot, but it is looking really nice. But he's a guy who's a pass-first type of guy who I think could really benefit this Washington Wizards team down the line. It's something that they really haven't had the luxury of having, is a point guard that will actually pass the ball and help out on that type of, you know, side of the NBA. And I think if you put a dude like Anthony Black there and you tell him all you got to do is pass the ball and be a versatile defender, which the Washington Wizards kind of have neither of, unfortunately, then yeah, you're filling two of, I think, the biggest holes that this Wizards team has in passing and defense. And I think this would be awesome to partner up with Bradley Beal and potentially Kristaps. No idea if Kyle Kuzma's going to be here for the long run. Again, this big three just unfortunately hasn't really worked that well. I don't know if it's the supporting cast or what it is that they have on this team that is completely going wrong. I just think it's the lack of defense and playmaking being the two main culprits. And yeah, they unfortunately missed out last year where a couple players that they wanted to draft, like Dyson Daniels, didn't actually fall to them. And Dyson Daniels was, of course, drafted the Pelicans, who I also think isn't really working that well there. Would have been awesome to see him on this Wizards team. But yeah, they need a dude like Dyson Daniels. They need a guy like Josh Giddey. Those guys who are both happen to be Australian, but both happen to be guys who are like 6'7", can defend really, really well, have a decent jump shot, and of course are really nice playmakers. Anthony Black fits that criteria, and as I said, he brings in two things that the Wizards don't have, which is defense and playmaking. Of course, he will be not probably as efficient in those things coming into the NBA. We've seen a lot of point guards in recent times like Darius Garland, you know, struggle in the NBA at the start, but then eventually develop into being a really good player. I think Dyson Daniels is going to be another one of those guys. And then Anthony Black, not sure it will click for him straight away. But again, if Bradley Beal is patient, which he has been for an extremely long time, so I don't see why he wouldn't be. I think Anthony Black would be a nice fit. And yeah, a guy who will average you, hopefully for them, maybe 12 points and, you know, 5 or 6 rebounds maybe in his first year and 5 assists maybe. Definitely would be a really nice thing to bring in. And yeah, I think it just would benefit this Washington Wizards team quite a bit. Now, moving on to pick number 9, we do have the New Orleans Pelicans, who are in an extremely weird spot where they have this really awesome roster. The issue is they just got players who don't want to stay healthy, unfortunately. Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram are two of the best forwards in the league, but they're never on the court, never even on the court together. And when they actually did manage to play some games, we did see that the New Orleans Pelicans were like, I think at one stage, the 3rd seed in the West and looked really, really nice, but they just had a bunch of injuries and they just fell down, even falling past the Lakers, who they own, pick swaps for. So, yeah, it's just an extremely unfortunate thing for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded this pick. I just don't really know what more they need. You could definitely go for a playmaker and maybe something like that. But you've got a hidden gem sitting there like Dyson Daniels, who I think could be exactly like Josh Giddey, other than them both being Australian. They're both 6'7", pass first type of dudes with decent jumpers who can defend pretty nice on the ball. So he's already kind of there for you. I really don't know what else this team needs. They just need to stay healthy and hope the development of players like Dyson Daniels pans out, because if Daniels becomes what they had Lonzo doing in New Orleans, if not even a lot better, which I think he could, then you should have a really good team, and he'd be an awesome player to keep alongside Zion, CJ, Brandon Ingram. But yeah, you maybe just adding a really nice role player would be the right way to go here. And I think one of the best role players in this draft with the 9th overall pick does happen to be Grady Dick, who is an extremely efficient player who I think has an extremely well-versed jump shot, who could be a guy that very similar to a player like Reggie Bullock, who is kind of being compared to right now, as a guy who you can chuck in the corner every now and then, and of course be a really, really good shooter, a guy who can play the 2 and the 3, but also defend the perimeter really well, which is what Grady Dick has done. Of course, he's from Kansas, and in his season that he has played for them, he's been averaging an extremely efficient 14 points per game, which has been really good. It's being said that Grady Dick is a very versatile wing who is a great shooter with high upside. He's a good athlete who is great at moving without the ball and can always find a good place for a catch and shoot. He's great floor spacing forward with good shot creation ability. My thing is, this team does have already a couple of really nice shooters, but I think if your goal is to have, Dyson Daniels and Zion Williams as your point forwards, which I think is what they're trying to build and have been trying to build right now in New Orleans for a little bit, then you're going to need some shooters around them. They've of course got Trey Murphy, who's there, CJ, Brandon Ingram, and a couple other dudes here and there, but they do still lack some shooting sometimes. Josh Richardson's not an elite shooter. Herbert Jones is not a very good shooter at all. I don't think Jose Alvarado, from remembrance, is a very good shooter. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of lacking on shooting here and there. I don't think Valanciunas has been that good from 3 this season, and has definitely dropped off quite a bit as well to kind of what he used to be. But yeah, I just think if you're going to want to have Zion and, Dyson Daniels as 2 of the point forwards, you're going to need to add some shooting, and I think a dude like Grady Dick, who can not only add you some really nice 3-point shooting, but he can also be very, very efficient and, I think, reliable. I think you're kind of looking at a dude like Corey Kispert from one of the previous drafts, who I think is averaging around a good, efficient 10 points per game or so for the Wizards. But you're looking at kind of that player, I think, but with Reggie Bullock's type of defense, and a much better perimeter guy who can definitely, I think, switch a lot better, and that's why he's, I think, rated so highly. I think there's also a very big kind of, I think, spectacle that this guy could be a really good shot creator in the league as well, because right now, really, the low that you'd think this guy would achieve is just being a good shooter, right? But I think the high of what he could be is not only a good shooter who can defend, but maybe a guy who could create his own shot when there's an absence of a Brandon Ingram or a Zion Williamson. I feel like maybe that's another thing the Pelicans might need, is as soon as these guys go down, you have no one who can really fill in and create these shots. You're not really going to have a guy like Larry Nance come in and do any of that type of stuff. I just don't think that's practical and, realistic to see Larry Nance just pulling up from the mid-range and creating his own shot. that's the issue with this Pelicans team but it could be solved right here with a guy like Grady Dick, who, with a healthy Zion and a healthy Brandon Ingram, he can be a really nice three-point shooter who can defend the perimeter and switch. But without Zion and without Brandon Ingram, maybe this Grady Dick guy could be a very nice shot creator who can do it on both sides of the court. I think that's what you're kind of wanting if you're the New Orleans Pelicans. And then once you've got him, and you of course develop Dyson Daniels into hopefully the guy you want him to be, maybe fix up their centers, because Jackson Hayes and Valanciunas haven't been that good. Or hell, maybe even run Zion as a small ball center. That'd be, unstoppable. I think you're going to have a very, very good New Orleans Pelicans team, in the future. Now, with the last pick, we've got pick number 10, and that is the Orlando Magic. And with this pick, I will, of course, have them selecting Taylor Hendricks, who's a 6'9" power forward, who was definitely kind of rose, as a high, drafted player on this list. I think that a lot of people had him a little further down, a month or two ago, but he's really kind of, again, rose to be a really nice player. And at the time of making this video, I think his comparison is actually a bit of a Jeremy Grant type of guy, a 6'9" power forward who can maybe switch to that small forward position, play some nice defense, but hopefully be, a good three-point shooter as well. I think this is a nice thing that could add to the Orlando Magic. I'm not exactly too sure if he is the best player available with this pick. I think there might be a couple more players available, but of course they're all guards, and the Orlando Magic have so many guards. Not just that, even though he might not be the best player available at this pick, I actually think Taylor Hendricks might have the best potential nearly out of all the players I've got available, because you kind of know what you're going to get, and he's even been titled as Mr. Versatility on the court. Some people are calling him, as he's just a kind of guy who's so versatile out there. He can really do it all, and I just think there's not really too much of a knock on this guy. It's being said that he's an extremely good dunker, and just kind of really puts those highlight plays on the court. He's a really good pick and roll type of player that has potential to be really nice in the NBA. His defense is also really good, having a really awesome ability to block shots, and he gets in the passing lanes very, very comfortably, and it just seems like a really nice overall fit there as well. It's being said as well that he's also kind of maybe even being compared to a bit of an Andrew Wiggins type of mold if Jeremy Grant isn't the one, which makes me think that, not only can this guy guard the small forward and power forward, but maybe there's the potential that some people see for him to maybe even switch onto a shooting guard in the NBA, which is very hard to kind of find, in a 6'9" type of guy. Like, I mean, you look at Kevin Love, who's 6'8", and he can barely even guard his own position, right? You're looking at a dude who's 6'9" who can maybe push to that shooting guard position as well. The Andrew Wiggins comparison is something I really like. Just a guy who has an extremely nice knack on the defensive end, who's really, really athletic and can put a nice flashy play, on the court as well. It seems like his shooting ability is pretty nice as well. And again, I think that's where he gets his Jeremy Grant, type of comparison as well, where in terms of a guy who can, guard the power forward and small forward, but be a nice shooter, it seems like you can almost slot this guy in as a role player, or maybe potentially down the line try and see if he could become a shot creator. I think right now that is kind of the dream, to see if he could become a good shot creator in the league. But I think what a lot of people are saying is right now is this is the type of dude who could be maybe an all-star type of role player. And what I mean by that is, I think Andrew Wiggins is the perfect example. He's not the best player on his team. In fact, he's seen as by a role player by some, but almost too, good to be recognized as that. And that's what happened to Andrew Wiggins. He was so good at being an elite role player that he became an all-star and an all-star starter. And I think this is what could happen with this type of guy. I feel like he'd be a really awesome Jonathan Isaac type of replacement who they unfortunately haven't really had the services of due to all the injuries that guy has unfortunately had in the last couple of years of his career. I think they will definitely lose him. He'll probably leave for a fresh start or something like that. And you bring in a dude like Taylor Hendricks who can really kind of replace everything that Jonathan Isaac did in those really nice couple of games that he played for the Magic this season. He also fits really well into this team as they don't have a lot of forwards at the moment other than Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. They're not really developing, I think, anyone else there. And if they keep all their guards and all of that type of stuff and maybe sign a center and bring Taylor Hendricks off, maybe to start off the bench and, you know, do that, I think you're going to look at a really, really nice, solid team. And I just think he kind of fits what the Orlando Magic are really looking for right now. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys agree with my picks, or would you guys have maybe selected someone else with a couple of the picks that I've taken? I definitely would really like to know. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlog channel, and of course this channel for all the latest sports content, sports news, all of the above. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.